The rhythmic clatter of Eliza Hayes' keyboard filled her compact home office in Seattle's Queen and neighborhood. A freelance bookkeeper and single mother, she cast an anxious eye at the digital clock as she finalized quarterly tax filings for a burgeoning tech startup. Liam, her 10-year-old, needed picking up from his elementary school in Belltown in under half an hour. "Mom, are you almost done?" Liam, a whirlwind of energy with his tousled sandy hair and inquisitive hazel eyes, a mirror of his late father, popped his head around the doorframe. Eliza managed a warm smile, reaching for her lukewarm coffee. "Nearly there, sweetie. Homework all sorted?" Liam nodded, brandishing a worksheet. "All the math problems are conquered, but I'm a bit stuck on this Pacific Northwest history question." Pride swelled in Eliza. Liam excelled academically, a testament to her dedication. Since her husband Daniel's tragic climbing accident on Mount Rainier 5 years prior, she'd single-handedly managed their lives, building her freelance business from the ground up. The responsibility was immense, but she'd never faltered. "Just give me 10 more minutes, okay? We can tackle the pioneers when I'm finished." Her phone buzzed. Eliza sighed. It was her mother, Beatrice. "Eliza, darling, we need to discuss Saturday's engagement dinner." Beatrice's voice, always laced with a hint of condescension, came through the speaker. "Clarissa is bringing Julian. You're coming, aren't you?" Eliza's brow furrowed. Her younger sister, Clarissa, had always been the golden child. Strikingly beautiful, effortlessly charming, she was Beatrice's pride and joy. Eliza, by contrast, was perpetually labeled too sensible and unexciting. "Of course, Mom. Liam and I will be there." A delicate sigh drifted from the other end. "Well, I suppose that's acceptable. Just ensure he's on his best behavior. We wouldn't want anything to mar Clarissa's special evening." Eliza bit back a retort. Liam was impeccably behaved. The issue, if any, lay squarely with her mother and sister. "Don't worry. So, what does Clarissa's fiancé do?" "Julian Croft. He's a portfolio manager from an exceedingly distinguished East Coast family." Beatrice's voice dripped with satisfaction. "Absolutely perfect for Clarissa. A Wharton graduate, impeccably cultured, devastatingly handsome." Eliza mentally rolled her eyes. Her mother's world revolved around pedigree and appearances. The following Saturday, Eliza and Liam arrived at Beatrice's sprawling waterfront home on Mercer Island. Taking a fortifying breath at the grand entrance, Eliza squeezed Liam's shoulder. "It's okay, Mom," Liam whispered. "I know Grandma Beatrice and Aunt Clarissa aren't our biggest fans." A pang of sorrow hit Eliza. Children saw far more than adults credited them for. The sound of Clarissa's tinkling laughter drifted from the formal living room as they entered. She was resplendent in a designer silk sheath, champagne flute in hand, animatedly conversing with a man Eliza didn't recognize. "Eliza, Liam, you made it." Beatrice offered a cool, appraising smile. "Clarissa, your sister and nephew are here." Clarissa turned, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Eliza, so glad you could come. This is my fiancé, Julian Croft." Julian rose and turned. Tall, with well-groomed dark hair and surprisingly kind gray eyes, something about his face tugged at a distant corner of Eliza's memory. "A pleasure to meet you, Eliza," Julian said, his voice a mellow baritone. "Clarissa has told me so much about you." He extended a hand. Eliza shook it. His grip was firm, his hand warm. "You too," Eliza replied. "And this is my son, Liam." Julian smiled at Liam, looking directly into the boy's eyes. "Hello, Liam. Good to meet you. What grade are you in?" "5th grade, sir," Liam answered, a little shyly. "A fantastic age. When I was in 5th grade, I built an entire model of the Apollo lunar module for the science fair." Julian's tone was easy, clearly comfortable with children. Clarissa cleared her throat with a hint of impatience. "Julian, darling, could you refresh my drink?" Eliza found herself warming to Julian. He seemed grounded and considerate, a surprising match for the often self-absorbed Clarissa. Throughout dinner, Beatrice and Clarissa held court, discussing wedding minutiae, the bespoke gown from a Parisian atelier, the exclusive reception venue at the Chihuly Garden and Glass, the Michelin-starred caterer. Eliza's input was, predictably, never solicited. "Eliza, you needn't worry about a bridesmaid dress, dear," Clarissa announced suddenly. Eliza looked up, startled. "I'm not a bridesmaid? I'm so sorry, but we've drifted apart, haven't we?" Clarissa's voice was laced with faux regret. "Besides, you must be so terribly busy with your little bookkeeping business and, well, Liam." Beatrice nodded sagely. "Quite right, Clarissa. We wouldn't want to impose." A familiar ache tightened Eliza's chest, but she kept her expression neutral. She was accustomed to her family's dismissals. Beneath the table, Liam's small hand found hers. Only Julian looked uncomfortable, clearing his throat. "But surely family participation is paramount? I would think Eliza and Liam should be central to such a special day." Clarissa shot her fiancé a surprised glance. "Oh, they're invited, of course, darling. It's just the bridal party is already filled with my dearest friends." Eliza offered Julian a small, grateful smile. At least he seemed to possess some decency. After dinner, as Eliza was clearing plates in the kitchen, a role she invariably filled, Julian appeared in the doorway. "Can I lend a hand?" he offered. "It's fine. I'm used to it," Eliza replied. "Clarissa and Mom tend to cast me in the practical role." Julian watched her silently for a moment. "You're different than Clarissa described," he said, almost to himself. "Meaning?" "Nothing specific." Julian smiled faintly. "I just hope we'll have more opportunities to get to know you and Liam." After he left, a strange disquiet settled over Eliza. Julian's face, she was sure she'd encountered him before, but the when and where remained elusive. In the car on the way back to their Queen and apartment, Liam piped up, "Julian seems really nice. I wonder why he's marrying Aunt Clarissa." Eliza couldn't suppress a small laugh. "Liam, you shouldn't say such things." But privately, she shared her son's sentiment. As the wedding preparations advanced, Eliza felt increasingly marginalized. Clarissa and Beatrice rarely shared details or sought her opinion. Nevertheless, she quietly handled the unglamorous behind-the-scenes tasks, cross-referencing guest lists with RSVPs, liaising with the florist about delivery logistics, proofreading the invitations, areas where her meticulous bookkeeping skills proved invaluable. Helping out again? Julian found Eliza one afternoon at Beatrice's, surrounded by stacks of calligraphy-addressed envelopes. "Clarissa seems a bit overwhelmed by these more administrative aspects." "It's no trouble. I'm good at this sort of thing." Eliza shrugged. Julian observed her for a moment. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "you seem incredibly familiar." Eliza paused, looking up at him. "I've had the same feeling about you. I just can't place it." Just then, Liam burst into the room. "Mom, Julian, I aced my history presentation." Julian smiled at the boy. "What was the topic?" "The Klondike Gold Rush," Liam announced proudly. "Fascinating. I'm a bit of a history buff myself." Julian sat down beside Liam, genuinely engaging with his project. A warmth spread through Eliza as she watched them. Julian's interest in her son felt authentic, a stark contrast to past men in Clarissa's orbit who'd barely acknowledged Liam's existence. A week before the wedding, Julian called Eliza unexpectedly. "Eliza, I need to talk to you about something." His voice was serious. "I want you to be Clarissa's maid of honor." Eliza was stunned into silence. "But Clarissa didn't even ask me to be a bridesmaid." I insisted. "Family is important, especially at a wedding." There was a new firmness in Julian's tone. Clarissa eventually agreed. Eliza felt a confusing mix of emotions. She doubted her sister's genuine happiness about it, but she was touched by Julian's considerate gesture. The next day, Beatrice called, incandescent with rage. Clarissa is in hysterics. How dare you manipulate Julian into this? I didn't say a word. It was Julian's idea. I don't believe it. Beatrice seethed. You always play the victim, trying to sabotage Clarissa's happiness. This is her day. Eliza took a deep breath, striving for calm. I want Clarissa to be happy. If she truly doesn't want me as her maid of honor, I'll decline. You can't decline now. Julian has made up his mind. Beatrice huffed. Just try not to overshadow her. It's Clarissa's moment. On the wedding day, Eliza arrived early at St. James Cathedral with Liam. She wore a simple, elegant sapphire blue dress. Perhaps too understated for a maid of honor, but a deliberate choice to avoid upstaging Clarissa. You look beautiful, Mom, Liam smiled. In the bridal suite, Clarissa was a vision in an elaborate couture gown, surrounded by fawning bridesmaids. When Eliza entered, her sister offered a curt nod. Well, Eliza, Beatrice said, her lips pursed, that dress is very you. The ceremony proceeded with solemn grandeur. Eliza stood behind Clarissa, maintaining a serene smile, her gaze often drawn to Julian's kind expression. He caught her eye a few times, offering a subtle, reassuring smile. The reception at the Chihuly Garden and Glass began with the couple's grand entrance, toasts, and dancing. Eliza sat with Liam at a slightly out-of-the-way table, quietly enjoying their meal. Soon, it was time for speeches. Clarissa rose, microphone in hand. She surveyed the room, her gaze landing on Eliza. Suddenly, her smile morphed into something bordering on malicious. Everyone, thank you for being here, Clarissa began, her voice saccharine sweet. I'm so thrilled to share this day with all our loved ones. After a few platitudes about marital bliss, she gestured towards Eliza. And speaking of family, here's my dear sister, Eliza. A single mother, bless her heart, who's, well, let's just say she's been on the market for a while. A ripple of uneasy laughter went through the room. Any takers? Slightly used, but good mileage. The color drained from Eliza's face. Liam's small hand gripped hers fiercely. Just kidding, just kidding. Clarissa trilled, though some guests laughed uncomfortably. Beatrice then took the microphone. Our Eliza has always been the pragmatic one, she said, her voice syrupy. Definitely pre-owned, but still functional. Comes with a spirited accessory. This time, more pronounced laughter erupted. Eliza sat frozen. Tears welled in Liam's eyes. Mom, he whispered, his voice trembling. Eliza slowly stood, taking her son's hand. Let's go, she said softly. But then, from the corner of her eye, she saw Julian rising slowly. His face was flushed, his jaw tight. The venue quieted, all eyes turning to the groom. Julian took a deep breath, moved away from Clarissa, and took the microphone. His eyes met Eliza's, trying to convey something. The room fell utterly silent. Julian's expression was one of profound gravity. He began to speak, his voice low but carrying. Ladies and gentlemen, today was meant to be the day I made the most important commitment of my life. However, it's not the commitment you might be expecting. The smile vanished from Clarissa's face, replaced by bewilderment. Beatrice looked aghast. First, a word about those remarks. Julian's voice was calm but underscored with steel. The words directed at Eliza and Liam were cruel, unthinking, and, frankly, despicable. I cannot and will not align myself with such values. Clarissa started to speak, but Julian held up a hand, silencing her. Actually, there's something I need everyone to understand. Julian paused. Eliza and I are not strangers. Eliza looked up, a jolt going through her. The fog in her memory began to dissipate. 10 years ago, when my younger sister, Sophie, was battling leukemia at Seattle Children's Hospital, Eliza was a volunteer there. Julian's voice cracked slightly. I was 22, a terrified older brother, and I was profoundly moved by the quiet strength and compassion of a young woman, then 25, named Eliza. During the last, difficult months of Sophie's life, Eliza was a constant source of comfort to her and to our family. Hot tears pricked Eliza's eyes. Sophie Croft. Of course. A bright, brave girl diagnosed in her late teens. Eliza herself had battled a serious illness as a child and, upon recovery, had dedicated time to hospital volunteering. Even after Sophie passed, Eliza's kindness lingered in our memories, Julian continued. It took me a very long time to navigate the grief. He faltered, then resumed. Then, 3 years ago, I met Clarissa at a charity gala. I was drawn to her vivacity. I didn't realize Clarissa was Eliza's sister until we'd been dating for some time. Julian's gaze shifted to Clarissa, a mixture of sorrow and disappointment in his eyes. The stories I heard about Eliza from her, in retrospect, were deeply colored by jealousy and resentment. But I wanted to believe people could grow. Clarissa's face was contorting with rage. Beatrice had sunk into her chair. After our engagement, I began to see Clarissa's true colors more clearly, Julian said quietly. I was particularly struck when I first met Liam. He was the little boy who used to visit Sophie's room, bringing her crayon drawings. Eliza looked at Liam. Her son, then just 5, had sometimes accompanied her on volunteer visits, charming patients with his handmade cards. 10 years ago, Liam was just a small child, but he had an uncanny ability to make my sister smile. Julian's voice softened. When I learned he was Eliza's son, it felt kismet. Liam's eyes widened. I remember. I gave the nice lady a picture of a ferry boat. Julian smiled. You did, Liam. And Sophie cherished it until the very end. His expression hardened again. Throughout this engagement, I've had growing misgivings about Clarissa's and Beatrice's coldness, their self-absorption, particularly their treatment of Eliza and Liam. I hope they might change. Today's display has shattered that hope entirely. Julian slowly removed his wedding band. Gasps echoed through the room. Today, I am calling off this marriage, he stated, his voice quiet but resolute. 10 years ago, Sophie's dying wish was that I find a life built on genuine respect and mutual support. Clarissa, Beatrice, your actions today are the antithesis of that. Clarissa shrieked. This is a joke, Julian, right? What are you saying? It's no joke, Julian said evenly. I'm doing what's right. He walked over to Eliza and Liam. I've been searching for a long time for the kind soul I met in that hospital. He extended his hand to Eliza. Let's get out of here. Eliza, tears streaming, took his trembling hand. Liam stood and took Julian's other hand. Wait, Beatrice cried out. Do you have any idea what this wedding cost? Julian turned back. I will cover all outstanding expenses. Please direct the invoices to my office. As the three of them walked towards the exit, Julian inclined his head respectfully to the bewildered officiant. My apologies for the disruption, Father Michael. Outside, in the crisp Seattle air, Eliza felt she could breathe freely for the first time in years. I can't believe this, she whispered. You truly don't remember Sophie clearly? Julian asked gently. Eliza closed her eyes, memories flooding back. I remember her smile, especially when the pain was bad. She was so incredibly brave. Her voice wobbled. But you, honestly, you were a blur. So many families, so much grief. I never forgot you, Julian said softly. Your dedication, your strength, your kindness. After Sophie died, I tried to find you, but I had no contact information. Liam looked up at them. So, what do we do now? Julian placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. How about we find a quiet place for some dinner? And then we figure out what comes next. Eliza smiled. A door in her heart, long bolted shut, was creaking open. As Julian's Tesla Model S pulled out of the Chihuly Garden parking lot, furious shouts echoed behind them. In the rearview mirror, Clarissa was a frantic figure, hiking up her expensive gown, makeup streaked, her perfect chignon unraveling. Beatrice stumbled after her, breathless. Julian, come back. Clarissa's screams were audible even inside the car. Julian let out a long sigh, glancing at Eliza. Are you all right? Eliza exhaled shakily, watching the chaotic scene recede. Guests were milling about, whispering, some surreptitiously filming on their phones. Clarissa's bridesmaids were attempting to console a sputtering Beatrice. I don't know, Eliza answered truthfully, but I'm glad to be leaving with Liam. Liam was quiet in the back, though tear tracks still glistened on his cheeks. Mom, are you okay? He asked in a small voice. Eliza turned and smiled at her son. I'm fine, sweetie. We're together. Julian found a quiet bistro in West Seattle with a view across Puget Sound. The city lights twinkled, and the Olympic Mountains were faint silhouettes against the darkening sky. They sat for a while, perusing menus, emotions too raw for immediate words. I'm sorry, Julian finally said, for all of this. Eliza shook her head. You have nothing to apologize for. If anything, thank you for defending us. She looked at her son. Especially Liam. I'm okay, Liam said, trying to sound brave, though his small hands still trembled slightly. I know what Grandma Beatrice and Aunt Clarissa said isn't true. Julian gently touched Liam's arm. You're a remarkable young man, Liam. Sophie used to call you her little sunshine bringer. Liam's face lit up. She did. She absolutely did. Eliza smiled. Your sister's face always brightened when you visited, Liam. Their food arrived. Eliza ate with a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in years. Julian's quiet, steady presence was unexpectedly comforting. Julian, Eliza began hesitantly, why did you get engaged to Clarissa? Did you truly love her? Julian considered. Initially, I was drawn to her energy. After Sophie, my world felt very gray. Clarissa was vibrant, and being around her seemed to make things brighter. He swirled the water in his glass. And when I found out she was your sister, it felt like fate, I suppose. Even if I couldn't place you, perhaps some part of me recognized a connection. He gave a wry smile. But as time went on, I realized Clarissa's brightness was superficial. She craved constant admiration and lacked genuine empathy, especially towards her own family. Yet you were still going to marry her? Eliza asked. Julian shrugged, a hint of embarrassment in his eyes. I believed people could change. I tried to focus on her better qualities. He paused. And frankly, once things were set in motion, it was hard to deviate. The expectations. He looked up, meeting Eliza's gaze. But today, seeing you and Liam treated like that, I couldn't ignore it. I had to act on what I truly felt. His phone vibrated. Clarissa's name flashed on the screen. Julian sighed and declined the call. It immediately rang again. Maybe you should answer, Eliza suggested. Reluctantly, Julian took the call. Clarissa's furious, shrill voice was audible even from across the table. Eliza and Liam focused on their meals, though they couldn't help but overhear the tirade. Julian responded calmly, though his expression grew weary. Clarissa, my decision is final, he said at last, his voice firm. We can speak through our attorneys tomorrow. Please don't contact me again tonight. He ended the call. A heavy silence descended. Sorry about that, Julian said. Eliza shook her head. No need to apologize. It's a complicated situation. Where are we now? Liam asked suddenly. The adults exchanged a small smile at his innocent query. Well, Julian mused, perhaps at the start of a new adventure. After dinner, Julian drove Eliza and Liam back to their Queen and apartment. He walked Eliza to her door. Thank you for everything today, Eliza said softly. The porch light caught the silver in her dark hair. Thank you, Julian replied, his gaze direct. Can I see you again? Tomorrow? The three of us. Eliza smiled. Yes, I'd like that. Mom, is Julian coming back? Liam suddenly appeared. He said he'd tell me more stories about Sophie. Julian chuckled. I will, Liam. I promise. Eliza watched from her doorway as Julian returned to his car. He turned and smiled before driving off, and a warmth spread through her. Inside, several irate voicemails from Beatrice awaited. Eliza, how could you do this to us? Clarissa is devastated. You've clearly manipulated Julian. Eliza sighed and deleted them. Liam, time for a bath. School tomorrow. Mom, Liam tugged her sleeve. Do you like Julian? Eliza was taken aback by his directness. I don't know him well yet, Liam. But he seems like a very good man. I like him, Liam stated firmly. He's Sophie's brother, and he stood up for us. And he kept smiling at you. Eliza stroked his hair. You don't miss a thing, do you? Later that night, after Liam was asleep, Eliza stood by her living room window, a whirlwind of confusion and nascent hope in her heart. Her phone chimed with a text from Julian. Home safe? Liam okay? She smiled, typing back, we're both fine. Thank you. A reply came almost instantly. Good. Sleep well, Eliza. Coffee after you drop Liam at school tomorrow. Her heart did a little flutter. Yes, that would be lovely. Good night, Julian. She pressed the phone to her chest, exhaling slowly. The family schism, the wedding debacle, this unexpected reconnection, it was a lot. But strangely, a sense of peace she hadn't known for years was settling over her. 1 year later, as the maples in Discovery Park blazed with autumn color, Eliza hung a newly minted sign outside her small office space in Fremont, Hayes Financial Solutions. The boutique bookkeeping firm, started with Julian's encouragement and a small business loan he'd helped her secure, was already gaining a sterling reputation. Mom, hurry up. We're going to be late for my game. Liam, now 11, taller and brimming with confidence, called out. As captain of his soccer team, he was thriving. Coming. Eliza grinned. Life's changes were evident in her too. Her shoulder-length hair, now expertly cut, gleamed, and a quiet confidence shone in her eyes. I'll drive him, Julian said, appearing from the kitchen of their new home in Magnolia, a charming craftsman they'd moved into over the summer. They weren't officially engaged, but their bond was deepening with each passing day. But don't you have that crucial investors meeting? Eliza asked. Julian shrugged. The market can wait 30 minutes. Liam's championship game cannot. They made a brief stop at Lakeview Cemetery. After placing fresh sunflowers on Sophie's grave, the three stood in quiet contemplation. Kept my promise, Soph, Julian murmured. Eliza squeezed his hand. Liam placed a painted rock on the headstone, a little ritual he'd developed. I still feel like she's watching over us, Liam said softly. Eliza leaned her head on Julian's shoulder. Thank you, Sophie, she whispered to the breeze. Miles away, in a cramped Belltown studio, Clarissa was boxing up what remained of her designer wardrobe. The wedding scandal had led to a swift social decline. Friends had evaporated, especially after Beatrice, despite Julian having paid every last wedding bill, had pathetically attempted to sue him for emotional distress, a suit summarily dismissed. Clarissa, cut off from the Croft family's orbit and her mother's diminishing resources, was learning to live on her meager influencer income. Beatrice, too, found her social calendar empty, her life of curated perfection now hollow and lonely. She occasionally tried to contact Eliza, but her calls went unanswered. The chasm she had created was, she was slowly realizing, irreparable. On Christmas Eve, Eliza, Julian, and Liam were curled up by the fireplace in their Magnolia home. Liam, exhausted from holiday excitement, was already asleep. Julian quietly produced a small velvet box. I, have something for you. Eliza stared at the box. Inside, nestled on satin, was an exquisite emerald ring. It was Sophie's, Julian said softly. She told me, when you find someone truly special, Julian, give her this. Tears welled in Eliza's eyes. Oh, Julian. You and Liam, you've brought so much light back into my life. He took her hand. Eliza Hayes, will you marry me? Will you make us officially a family? A family bound not just by circumstance, but by heart. Eliza smiled through her tears, echoing Sophie's sentiment. Yes, she whispered. We already are, aren't we? Outside, snow had begun to fall, blanketing Seattle in a soft, quiet hush, heralding a new year and a new, luminous beginning.